While I know some of you are expecting a different exposed video, there is something that I want to address as it had recently come to my attention. I found the whole situation very alarming. So here it is at last, the first ever Undertale Predator on the Sileskios channel. And not just any Undertale community member, but rather someone much larger in the scene, known for speedruns and content creation. This individual's name is ShayTV. While I have never once heard this name before myself, it was very clear and evident to me that these things being alleged against Shay needed to be clarified further. So, as a side note, I rather enjoy the Deltarune and Undertale games. The challenging aspect of it has always been a huge kick for me, and that's all I really like about them. So, I'm not really well versed, I just, sweat in some of the genocide fights. ShayTV started their career back on July 1st of 2017, where they would upload speedruns of Deltarune and Undertale, as well as many various piano covers. Their first ever viral video was created and uploaded on June 19th of 2021, called Undertale Speedrun But I Have Dream Luck. The video I'm responding to starts with Shay revisiting the allegations about Dream cheating, during a period when Minecraft YouTuber drama was everywheres. Their focus was on Dream speedruns, not on anything involving children. Now, I'm not here to relegate those claims, and as far as I'm aware, there was never any conclusive public evidence that had ever shown or proven Dream to be a predator. What I am here is to talk about Shay's own conduct, and the serious allegations and evidence that have since surfaced about Shay. Flash forward to November 20th of 2025, where allegations quickly unfold about the monster Shay truly was.
If you're seeing this, there has been an exposure document released about Shay, who you might know as the popular Undertale series content creator. They have done completely reprehensible things to their friends and loved ones.
No longer would this frogget mask hide who they really were underneath. 262-page document was released inside the Frog Family Discord server, formerly known as Shay's Community Discord server, before he fled from the allegations. This same document has been posted on Twitter by the server admin named WillyJWilly, addressing very serious allegations against Shay. Now, before I continue, I want to give a huge thank you to the victims for coming out with their own stories, and a huge thank you to all of those who have the ability to stand up and speak for those who are affected by Shay. You are a symbol to those who are affected by scenarios like these. Even just by using your voice to speak out against monsters like these ones, you inspire others. Thank you for what you do. Before we dive in, I want to relay the same point that content creator Merg had himself.
The accusations are really bad, and if you look into them, you should always form your own opinion, not take somebody else's.
We, a collective group of Shay's victims and former friends, accuse Shay of actions including but not limited to harassment and orbiting fans until their legal age, and abuse. We are releasing this document because we feel that Shay's actions pose a present and extreme safety risk to the community, such that people need to be aware to protect themselves. In this document, you will find a collection of our stories, statements, and supporting evidence to these accusations. Shay themselves has already admitted to those actions, detailed in the testimonies from Anonymous 1, Azuraith, Anonymous 3, and WillyJWilly, to the victims themselves in private. Star Smiley, Shay's partner of 5 to 6 years, says that in November of 2025, Shay had touched them without consent while they were in bed, despite Star being ace and not wanting any explicit contact. Star explains that although they were allowed to seek intimacy elsewhere, Shay used that agreement to justify getting involved with nearly 20 different individuals without permission, even inviting people over when Star was out of the house. Star also recalls earlier incidents. In April of 2021, Shay flirted with 2 of Star's friends, cheated, and even got into another relationship during their breakup, and then came back asking for another chance. Shay making around 250 grand a year, Shay pushed most of the bills and housework onto Star, who made far less money, significantly less. Yet Star still handled the cleaning, groceries, laundry, dishes, everything, while Shay isolated themselves online and pretty much just left trash and messes everywhere. Shay refused to help Star with their car after an accident, but bought themselves a $100,000 Corvette instead. And Star ends by stating that they don't blame their friends for Shay's cheating or behavior. Aspen met Shay in early 2022. They were 16 at the time, born November 2004, while Shay was 23, born in 1999. They spoke through Twitter DMs and eventually Discord, and the victim explained they were dealing with severe anxiety and mental health issues. Shay stepped in as the supportive friend, but immediately began crossing boundaries. Simple compliments were turned into flirting. Harmless comments about insecurity became inappropriate jokes, despite knowing that the victim was underage. Shay responded with body-focused remarks and suggestive wordplay that never should have been directed at someone who was under the age. At one point, Shay referenced NFTs, and I genuinely thought we were talking about digital scams or something along the lines of those, but it turns out it was something I wish I hadn't learned to begin with. Shay openly admits to feeding off of compliments and calling their younger fans simps, using their attention for validation instead of shutting anything down. Now that isn't friendship, that's manipulation. Summer Games Done Quick of 2022, things escalated. While sitting on the same bed in the same hotel room, Shay sent a suggestive shirtless photo via Snapchat, and as the victim approached 18, the flirtation became blatant, joking about kissing, hinting at physical closeness, and pushing boundaries they knew weren't appropriate. The victim asked about Star, Shay's partner at the time. Shay claimed that they had permission to do these things, but Star later confirmed for us themselves that it was never true. The messages became extremely suggestive, carefully worded to avoid saying anything explicit whilst trying to get the victim to play along, a pattern seen in manipulative behavior pretty much everywhere else. The victim attended SGTQ again in 2024 and 2025, and Shay pushed aggressively to meet up. According to the testimony, there was unwanted physical advances followed, ignoring clear discomfort signs. After that, the victim distanced themselves, carrying the trauma of the experience, and their statement highlights the same pattern that we've seen now across multiple victims: isolation, love bombing, manipulation, blame shifting, and power exploitation. A system that Shay repeated through DMs, sudden affection, and escalating attempts to turn casual interactions into something inappropriate. This testimony explains how Shay repeatedly crossed boundaries through suggestive jokes, comments, and intimate teasing towards someone who had only just turned 18, despite knowing them when they were still a child. The victim describes being too afraid to confront Shay because every attempt in the past led to guilt tripping, deflection, or just straight up emotional fallout. And none of this was a one-off. It was a clear pattern of pushing inappropriate comments, remarks, ignoring boundaries, and using emotional closeness as leverage, leaving the victim feeling pressured to keep the peace. They explained that their trust in Shay had been breaking for years through love bombing, guilt, and an uneven power dynamic that left them feeling ashamed and responsible for things that were never their fault. And even with all of that, they end their message by asking Shay to finally take accountability, to stop repeating these behaviors with fans and friends, and genuinely seek help. It's an exhausting closing statement, a final attempt to reach Shay and to end things honestly while still hoping that they change. Ozareth describes a clear pattern of Shay repeatedly crossing boundaries with someone younger, vulnerable, and fresh out of an abusive relationship. Even Ozareth set firm limits. Keep it platonic, don't make things suggestive, I don't want anything intimate, and yet Shay continued pushing regardless. Flirty comments, suggestive jokes, leaning remarks, and unwanted physical affection all continued despite Ozareth saying no multiple times. It was made very, very clear. Yet Shay would check in just to reopen the door, pressure for cuddling, kept bringing up flirting after being told not to, and eventually sent an inappropriate photo disguised as a hair check removal. This all happened while Ozareth was 18 and trying to maintain what they believed was a safe friendship. Aftermath made everything worse. Whenever confronted, Shay responded with the same cycle. Panicked DMs, self-focused apologies, excuses, and vague language that downplayed pretty much whatever happened in any situation. When Ozareth would ask for clarity, Shay dodged the question and disappeared. The full pattern is unmistakable. Boundary pushing, emotional manipulation, inappropriate comments towards vulnerable friends, followed by surface-level apologies designed to protect only their image rather than take responsibility. Anonymous Red joined Shay's community at the age of 17, becoming active in late 2020. As one of the only artists in the server, they immediately caught Shay's attention, receiving direct DMs, compliments, and encouragement that made them feel incredibly seen. By early 2021, they were talking constantly in DMs and VC, while Shay steered conversations towards adult topics, completely inappropriate for someone that was a child. Red also recalls Shay letting multiple underage users drink in the VC, giving only a quick, "Hey, don't do that," before watching it continue. Most of Shay's mod team at the time was also underage, yet Shay claimed there was an 18+ rule for moderation, a rule they ignored for everyone except Red, whom they waited to promote until the moment Red turned 18. When Red confronted them about their behavior towards fans, Shay responded with guilt trips using their real name and sending nightly messages while pretending that they were the one uncomfortable. After distancing themselves, Shay kept checking in just enough to keep them close without ever taking real responsibility. By late May, Shay pulled Anonymous 3 back in with the same line that they had always used on every other victim. It was just a misunderstanding of feelings. This went on for years, leaving Anonymous 3 feeling like only a backup option. At SGDQ of 2022, the situation escalated. After everyone returned from the hot tub, Shay suddenly stripped in the hotel room, with multiple people present, including a child. And then Shay turned around and blamed everyone else for being the ones to look instead of apologizing. But we all know how Shay works by now. Shay sent Anonymous 3 a half apology for certain moments, conveniently ignoring the incident that had traumatized them. And when confronted, Shay shifted everything back to their own guilt, turning accountability into yet again another pity act. In 2023, Shay began posting increasingly inappropriate photos to their private Twitter, starting with body-positive style images, but gradually moving into more revealing and suggestive territory as time went on. By April, one post went far beyond what anyone expected, showing far more of their body than what could be reasonably defended as just, quote, body positive. This led to a confrontation on April 17th from Willie J, who questioned why Shay didn't have an age-restricted space for this kind of content, and brought up many concerns about the private Twitter account. Instead of listening, Shay deflected, got frustrated, and painted Willie as an overreactor, even though Willie was clearly in the right to address this issue. Well, that sounds like good old Shay for us. Willie explained that they weren't judging, only pointing out that posting revealing content without clear warning or proper tagging could easily put children in a situation that they shouldn't be in. Their worry was quite legitimate. If the content isn't properly separated, it can show up where younger community members are clearly present. Now, after this confrontation with Willie, Shay eventually moved the posts into a Twitter circle, but even then, it came off more like protecting their image than addressing the actual concern. Willie's point was simple: if you're posting mature content, at least acknowledge what it is and keep it away from spaces where children might see it. It's just that simple. Say, I hope I said that right, a writer for the Calamity Project, the Terraria mod pack that Shay previously worked on. This member, Say, was also a moderator in Shay's Discord and Twitch chat, and according to their statement, Shay tried to get Say to come over specifically while Star Smiley was out of the house. Say made it very clear that if they were going to visit, they wanted to see both of them at the same time, not sneak around. The implication is pretty obvious. Shay was trying to arrange something behind Star's back, and Say wasn't comfortable with doing so. And look, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Terraria fan. I never really have been. People can flame me for that later. I'd rather just play Palworld with a Terraria skin than sit through actual Terraria for 1,000,000 hours. You couldn't even pay me $1 million. Anyways, back on topic. In the winter of 2023, Jade learned that their fiancé had been approached by Shay, who messaged them asking for intimate favors. Shay justified it by claiming that they, quote, had permission from their partner Star Smiley because Star was ace at the time. Jade's fiancé was new to polyamory and didn't fully understand what it was acceptable or not at the time. And Shay, being who they are, decided to take advantage of this fact and of the confusion by pressuring them into an online intimate exchange and tried to continue it afterwards. Jade only found out when their fiancé confessed what had happened, leaving Jade feeling blindsided and betrayed. There had been zero communication, and the situation nearly destroyed their relationship. When Jade finally confronted Shay, they apologized and claimed that they would ask properly in the future, something that never should have happened in the first place. This testimony faded into obscurity until the document brought it back into the light. Prisma shared a clip in the public chat quotes channel where Shay made a joke referencing
You gotta get that every once in a while, you know.
A term Shay used for feminine, masculine, explicit body parts. Shay then pinged a transgender member of the server in connection to the joke, which understandably upset them. Ray explains that their relationship with Shay began as what they believed was a consensual, intimate interaction, both online and eventually in person, but over time, the more disturbing the pattern became with how Shay treated their gender and their body. Despite Ray using they, them, and sometimes they, he, Shay kept pushing feminine terms onto them, pressured them to change their pronouns, and even used roleplay to coax Ray into using she, her for Shay's personal gratification. Shay also made comments about Ray's chest and top surgery that crossed from playful into genuinely controlling. Looking back, Ray realized none of this was ever properly discussed, none of it was truly ever mutual, and it left them feeling like Shay was just simply trying to reshape their gender and identity presentation to fit Shay's own desires, not real Ray's identity. Xander explains that in late 2023, Shay began seeking him out for what he thought were intimate interactions. At the time, he didn't realize that he was being used primarily for gratification, nor did he understand how many others were truly involved. He eventually learned that Star, Shay's partner, had been kept completely in the dark and that several people were being pulled into similar situations without knowing about one another. He also noticed that Shay was being physically close with others at events like SGDQ and GDQ, especially with Azarath, but never realized how deep those interactions actually went until the full story surfaced. Yellow explains that they had been close to Shay for nearly 5 years, standing by them through every meltdown, every cheating scandal, and every crisis. When the first allegations surfaced, they assumed it had to have been a misunderstanding, until one friend after another came forward with the same pattern: boundary pushing, guilt tripping, ignoring consent, manipulation, and making people feel like saying no would cost them friendship. It hit Yellow hard when they realized over 10 of their friends had been treated this way, and that Shay had even tried similar tactics on them. Learning how Shay treated their partner, acting like anything non-physical didn't count, only made it worse. By the end of it, Yellow decided that they can't have Shay in their life at all. They're done watching people get hurt, done making excuses, and done pretending that any of this was normal. They once cared for Shay, but after everything that has come out, there is no forgiveness and no future where Shay is ever a part of that circle again. This person explains that they didn't see themselves as a victim at first, but after watching so many friends come forward, they realized just how disrespectful and self-serving Shay's behavior towards them really truly was. They had had consensual intimate interactions with Shay in the past, but once their boundaries changed, Shay kept circling back, checking to see if those boundaries could be pushed once again. They say Shay pursued them most when they were single, treating them like a challenge and not a friend. Looking back, the flirtation and emotional closeness weren't genuine, they were just tactics, and now they feel used and worry for anyone who is still possibly close to Shay. Their hope is that the cycle ends here, and that Shay actually seeks help, and that no one else ever gets pulled into the same pattern again. This victim explains that in 2023, Shay treated them like a flavor of the week, giving them constant attention in DMs and streams, only to suddenly drop them for someone else. Shay teased them, pressured them to change their appearance, and kept escalating conversations, even when it made them uncomfortable. When Shay suddenly cut contact, it left them dealing with months of abandonment issues. Shay was using them for intimate roleplay and then would vanish, leaving them emotionally drained and relying on friends specifically to recover afterwards. At one point, Shay even twisted a harmless joke gift into something uncomfortable and apologized. Over time, it became very clear that Shay's interest faded the moment this person didn't match the level of femininity that Shay preferred. This person had known Shay for years, but everything shifted after they had confronted Shay about something that genuinely hurt them. From that point on, Shay started pretending that as if they weren't there, ignoring them, excluding them, and taking credit for things they discovered or created, all while hyping everybody else up. The timing made it clear. The cold treatment started right after that this victim had decided to speak up. Even while trying to distance themselves, they still felt pressured to stay friendly because of Shay's influence. The pattern flipped. Shay began sending photo after photo, fishing for compliments, getting flirty even when the person kept things surface level. Eventually, Shay became overly kind again, which felt reassuring until it turned into the same boundary-pushing cycle that we've seen across countless many victims. The second that they stopped giving Shay what they wanted, the interest vanished. When they tried opening up again, sharing a new name and more of themselves, Shay twisted it straight back into something inappropriate. That was their breaking point. This victim explains that Shay had been flirting with them in DMs for months while supposedly in a relationship. Then at GDQ, Shay kept staring at their chest like they were trying to solve a puzzle that only Shay could see. And at AGDQ of 2025, Shay tried to separate them 4 different times, to send specifically flirty messages and make advances, with their partner sitting right next to them on 4 different occasions. That's not bold, that's beyond delusion and incredibly scary. The victim quite literally had to be the one to shut it down every single time, practically doing emotional whack-a-mole. And as the document creator says, and I genuinely couldn't phrase it better myself, this is genuinely creepy uncle behavior. This person explains that they used to be one of Shay's older friends, and when Shay suddenly reached out in early 2024, they were excited at first, but it became obvious that the only time Shay messaged was when they wanted something intimate. The moment it really clicked was when they were out with their partner and got a rare DM from Shay, and instantly they felt dread. Why? Because it was never normal for her to check in, just another attempt for Shay to get explicit release. Victim tried to set boundaries, saying they'd talk later, but Shay pushed until they gave in just to keep the friendship alive. And right after getting what they wanted, Shay disappeared yet again. That cycle repeated for nearly 2 years, only being contacted for intimacy, feeling used, and never getting actual friendship in return. I bet this all sounds familiar by now. When they finally confronted Shay, Shay dodged the point entirely, made it about their own feelings, and claimed that they'd never treat a friend that way, while actively doing just that. Afterwards, communication almost vanished entirely, except when Shay wanted more of the same explicit interactions. By the end, the victim realized the pattern had been there the whole time. They regret ever engaging with Shay at all. This anonymous staff member realized after others had came forward that Shay had sent them inappropriate messages while they sat unmuted in a public football VC that was ran by Shay, something they initially thought was just a misunderstanding. But as more people spoke up, it became very clear that this wasn't a one-off situation. Shay frequently sent these kinds of messages while in open voice chats, sometimes with children present, and without checking if anyone was okay with it. The witness experienced it firsthand, with at least 2 other unaware people in the call at the time. When they brought it up privately with multiple other individuals, they all said "you too," showing that it had been happening for years. Their conclusion was simple: if Shay is using public community spaces to do things no one consented to, then they shouldn't have a platform whatsoever. And I agree with this. Shay should not be coming back anytime soon. This anonymous moderator explains that Shay regularly initiated inappropriate conversations in DMs, often claiming that Snark Smiley had approved it, something they now know isn't true, which we all know it as well. But had they known that, they never would have engaged at all. What started as normal chats almost always shifted into something inappropriate, even when they were stressed, vulnerable, or clearly not in the right headspace. They estimate that nearly 90% of their conversations with Shay eventually turned inappropriate. Over time, this moderator felt objectified, valued only for the attention that they could give, not as a friend. Hearing other victims came forward helped them to realize how consistent this pattern truly was. This testimony comes from someone who joined Shay's community at the age of about 8 months after they had turned the legal age of 18. Shay's behavior had shifted hard, suddenly getting flirty, making repeated comments about their appearance, and slipping into adult jokes, even after the person said that they were uncomfortable and already in a committed relationship. At SGDQ of 2025, things escalated. Inside of the hotel room, Shay invited them to sit together and then physically pulled them in to lie down, something the victim did not consent to. Their partner walked in at the perfect moment, and only then did Shay decide to back off. The situation was so stressful that their partner had a panic attack later that night. During dinner, Shay made a comment implying that people their age were trying to hit on them, which sent the victim into panic because they had never done anything like that. They clarified this and the topic was dropped immediately. There was also an earlier incident at SGDQ of 2023. While hugging goodbye, Shay lifted them and shifted their grip in a way that caused unwanted physical contact. The victim tried to brush it off as an accident, but looking back, they're convinced it wasn't. In the end, everything came down to Shay's choices. Over and over, they made decisions that caused serious mental, emotional, and physical harm. The pattern is undeniable. Many victims were just reaching adulthood. Boundaries were stated to be clearly crossed, and that this behavior continued anyways. These weren't accidents, they weren't isolated incidents, they were deliberate actions, and I'm certain more people will come forward. If you're able to speak with the victims, support them, and speak for the ones who can't, then I urge you to do so. I encourage you to do so. Sybil's JD, who became a victim themselves, shared a DM from Shay saying that they've moved out, returned to their mother's home, and are seeking genuine professional help, while stepping away from the internet indefinitely. But given the number of people affected, simply leaving social media is not enough. If the evidence stands, I hope accountability should be handled by the courts and not just a social media hiatus. My hope is that this video gives the victims the visibility they deserve. To everyone that was hurt, please take care of yourselves, lean on the people you trust, and know that you deserve safety, healing, and peace. You were never at fault for what happened to you. This has been 260 pages of victims' truths condensed into a 26-ish minute video. I am now going to pass out from all the editing, but please do look at the document if you have the time. Their original statements matter more than this video in their entirety. Please stay safe, and I will see you all next time.